I always believed in balance. You give love, you get love. You break trust, you pay for it. Simple. But my wife? She thought she could cheat and still live in luxury. What she didn't realize was that I'm not the kind of man you betray and walk away from unscathed. I wasn't looking for signs. I wasn't suspicious. I was content, maybe even a little too confident in my marriage. We had it all: a great life, money, stability. She had her dream wedding, a honeymoon in the Maldives planned, and a future that most women would kill for. And I, like a fool, thought I had a loyal wife. But life has a cruel way of showing you the truth when you least expect it. It happened by accident. A forgotten phone. A single notification. I wasn't even snooping. She had left her phone on the bathroom counter while taking a shower, and I was just brushing my teeth when the screen lit up. Can't wait to see you again tonight. Last night was amazing. Wish I could wake up next to you instead. It took me a second. A long second. I stared at the message, hoping I had imagined it. My heartbeat didn't speed up. My hands didn't shake. No, I felt something colder. Sharper. A clarity I had never experienced before. My mind clicked into place like a machine processing data. My wife is cheating on me. I didn't touch her phone. I didn't go through her messages. I didn't need to. That one text told me everything. Instead, I walked out of the bathroom, grabbed my own phone, and took a screenshot of her lock screen from my device. Proof. Then I placed her phone exactly where she left it and went to the kitchen to make myself coffee. Not out of routine, but because I needed time to think. Most men would react in anger. They'd confront her, scream, cry, demand answers. I did none of that. Emotion is a weakness in moments like these. She was already gone, mentally, emotionally. Whatever excuses she would give, whatever fake apologies she'd spew, they wouldn't change the fact that she had made her choice. Now, it was my turn to make mine. She walked into the kitchen minutes later, dressed in one of my shirts, hair still damp from the shower, stretching as she yawned. She looked at me like nothing had changed, like she hadn't just spent the night with another man. And that was the moment I decided to ruin her. She kissed my cheek, murmuring a sleepy morning, babe, before heading to the fridge. I played along, smiled, pretended. Because the best revenge isn't just about destroying someone. It's about making them believe they're safe right up until the moment the floor collapses beneath them. For the next 2 weeks, I became the perfect husband. I planned our honeymoon with even more enthusiasm, making sure she thought I was deeply invested in our future together. I let her believe that she had me wrapped around her finger, oblivious, blind. And while she was enjoying the illusion, I was laying the foundation for her downfall. I transferred all our shared funds into a separate account under my name. I canceled our joint credit cards and replaced them with new ones, solely in my name. I reached out to my lawyer, disguised under the pretense of business discussions, and ensured that legally, everything would remain mine. The house, the investments, every single asset she thought she had access to. And then I did something she would never expect. I bought her lover a gift. Not literally, but in the most poetic way possible. You see, cheaters are greedy. They want it all, the stability of a good man and the thrill of the affair. So I made sure to push them together. I planted little seeds, mentioned how busy I was going to be at work, how guilty I felt for not spending enough time with her. I even suggested she take a day to herself, maybe go out, relax. And just like that, she fell deeper into her own trap, thinking she was getting away with it. I watched her slip further into her own lies, sneaking out, making up excuses, thinking she was untouchable. Meanwhile, I made sure I had all the evidence I needed: photos, messages, even recordings. Not for court, not for legal battles. No, this was for something far more satisfying. By the time the honeymoon date arrived, everything was in place. My wife, my soon-to-be ex-wife, packed her bags, eager for what she thought was the vacation of a lifetime. She had no idea she was about to experience the most unforgettable trip of her life, for all the wrong reasons. There was a time when I thought my life was perfect. Not the kind of perfection you see in movies, all fireworks and grand romantic gestures, but the quiet, steady kind. The kind of life where you wake up next to someone you trust, where home feels like a sanctuary, where love isn't questioned but simply exists. That was my life with Emma. Mornings were predictable. She'd always wake up a few minutes after me, stretching lazily as she reached for my side of the bed, her fingers brushing the sheets before opening her eyes with a sleepy smile. I'd already be in the kitchen, making coffee just the way she liked it, 2 sugars, a dash of cream. She'd shuffle in, wearing one of my oversized shirts, yawning as she wrapped her arms around my waist from behind. "You make the best coffee," she'd mumble, pressing her face into my back. It was our little routine, something small but intimate, something I thought meant something. Weekends were even better. We had a tradition, Saturday night movie marathons. We'd order from the same Thai place, curl up on the couch, and argue about which film to watch. She always wanted romantic comedies. I preferred thrillers. She'd grown dramatically but always ended up laughing at the most unexpected moments. And I'd look at her then, thinking, this is it. This is what happiness looks like. I never felt the need to check her phone, to question where she was going or who she was talking to. That's the thing about trust. You don't realize how fragile it is until it shatters. I worked long hours, but I made sure to make time for her. I was the kind of man who believed that relationships needed effort, not just love. So I planned date nights, surprised her with little gifts, wrote her notes when I left early for work. She kept them all in a jar by the bedside table. Or at least, that's what I thought. There were small things that didn't stand out at the time. Like how she started taking longer to reply to my messages, how she suddenly had girls' nights more often, how she laughed a little too much at texts she never showed me. I brushed it off. I wasn't the jealous type, and she had never given me a reason to doubt her. I even remember the night I booked the honeymoon. She was sitting on the couch, flipping through a magazine, her legs curled up beneath her. Maldives, I had said, grinning. 2 weeks of white sand beaches, private villas, and no responsibilities. Her eyes lit up, and she jumped up to kiss me. "You're the best," she whispered against my lips, and I believed her. I really believed her. Looking back, I should have noticed how her excitement felt, rehearsed. How her arms didn't hold on to me as tightly as they used to. How she checked her phone right after kissing me. But I didn't. Because when you love someone, your mind fills in the gaps with hope instead of doubt. Our life together wasn't perfect, but it was ours. Or at least, I thought it was. And that's what makes the betrayal so much worse. Not just the act itself, but the realization that I was living in a carefully crafted illusion. It started with something small. So small that, on any other day, I wouldn't have thought twice about it. A shift. A flicker of something just beneath the surface. A tiny crack in the foundation of what I believed was a solid marriage. But I noticed. Because I always noticed. It was a Wednesday evening. I had come home earlier than usual, expecting to find Emma curled up on the couch, scrolling through her phone or watching one of her reality shows. Instead, the house was quiet. Too quiet. I checked my watch, 7:15 p.m. Not late. She should have been home. Her car was in the driveway. Her shoes were by the door. But she wasn't in the living room, not in the kitchen. I found her in the bedroom, standing by the window, phone pressed to her ear. She didn't hear me come in at first, but the moment she did, she tensed. Just for a second. A flicker of something unreadable crossed her face before she smiled, too quickly, too forced. "Hey, babe," she said, her voice light, casual. "Didn't hear you come in." She ended the call without saying goodbye. That was the first thing that stood out. Who hangs up like that in the middle of a conversation? No, see you later. No, love you. Just a quick press of a button and a forced smile. Who was that? I asked, keeping my tone neutral. I wasn't suspicious yet. Not fully. But I had questions. She hesitated, only for a second, but it was enough. Oh, just Sarah. She wanted to plan another girls' night. Sarah. The convenient name. The universal alibi. I nodded, watching her. A girls' night? Didn't you just have one last weekend? She laughed, but it was just a little too high-pitched, a little too airy. Yeah, but, we haven't had one in a while. Just catching up. A lie. A small one. But a lie nonetheless. Because I remembered. Last weekend, she had said the same thing. That she was going out with Sarah. And I hadn't questioned it then, because why would I? I watched her for another moment, waiting to see if she'd say anything else. If she'd fill the silence with something real. But she didn't. Instead, she moved closer, wrapping her arms around my waist like she always did. "Missed you," she murmured, pressing a kiss to my jaw. It was perfect. Too perfect. A well-rehearsed act, meant to disarm me. And maybe it would have worked if I hadn't already felt the shift. If I hadn't already noticed the way she tucked her phone into her pocket, screen down, like she was afraid I'd see something I wasn't supposed to. I didn't push. Not yet. Instead, I pulled back slightly, studying her face. Everything okay? Her eyes met mine, and for a split second, I saw it. A flicker of something, guilt? Fear? Whatever it was gone just as quickly as it appeared. She smiled again, that same too perfect smile. Of course. Why wouldn't it be? I wanted to believe her, but something in my gut told me not to. Over the next few days, the small things started piling up. She started bringing her phone with her everywhere, even to the bathroom, even to the shower. She used to leave it lying around, face up, without a second thought. Now, it was always screened down, always in her hand, always with the notifications silenced. She started dressing differently, too. Subtle changes, but noticeable. New lingerie I hadn't seen before. A new perfume. Clothes that clung just a little tighter, heels she never used to wear for a casual night out with the girls. And then there were the text messages. I caught glimpses of them sometimes, just flashes when she thought I wasn't looking. Messages she'd open and then quickly swipe away. Names I didn't recognize. Numbers without contact photos. She'd laugh at something on her screen, then immediately lock her phone the moment I turned my head. I wasn't stupid. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't the kind of man to jump to conclusions without evidence. But I also wasn't blind. Something was wrong. I just didn't know how deep the betrayal went yet. But I would. Soon. I was done ignoring the signs. Whatever illusion of trust one once had was gone, replaced by something colder, sharper. A focused clarity that stripped away any lingering doubts. Emma wasn't just acting strange, she was hiding something. And I was going to find out exactly what. The first thing I did was test her. Nothing obvious, nothing that would make her suspicious. Just small things. One night, while she was in the shower, I casually reached for her phone on the nightstand. She had never locked it before. But this time, the screen demanded a passcode. That alone was enough to confirm my suspicions. Emma had always been the type to roll her eyes at people who kept passwords on their phones. If you have nothing to hide, why lock it? She used to say. I had agreed. And yet, here we were. Her phone, suddenly locked. The hypocrisy was almost laughable. I put it down before she could catch me. I wasn't going to ask about it, because that's what she would expect. Instead, I played it cool, acted normal. If she thought I wasn't suspicious, she'd slip up eventually. The next test was even simpler. Hey, I said one evening, casually, as she was getting ready to leave. Where are you going? She hesitated. Not long. Just a beat too long. Dinner with Sarah, she said, slipping on her earrings. Nice, I nodded. Where at? Another pause. Another flicker of hesitation. That new Italian place downtown. It was a lie. I knew because I had driven past that restaurant earlier that day and seen a closed for private event sign on the door. But I didn't call her out. Not yet. Instead, I watched her walk out the door, watched her car pull out of the driveway, and waited exactly 5 minutes before getting into my own. If she was meeting Sarah, there'd be no harm in checking, right? Just an overprotective husband making sure his wife was safe. That's the excuse I told myself as I followed at a distance, keeping my headlights low, my speed steady. She didn't go downtown. She drove past it entirely, taking a different route, one that led toward a more secluded part of the city. My stomach tightened as I watched her pull into the parking lot of a cheap boutique hotel. Not a restaurant. Not anywhere near where Sarah lived. I didn't need to see more. I could have confronted her right then and there. Walked up, knocked on her window, and watched the color drain from her face. But that wasn't enough. That wasn't satisfying. No, I needed more than just a confrontation. I needed undeniable, irrefutable proof. Proof that would not only expose her but destroy every excuse, every lie she could possibly tell. The next day, I took my investigation a step further. I installed a simple tracking app on her phone. Nothing sophisticated, just a subtle piece of software that logged her locations. She never noticed. She was too comfortable, too confident that I was still in the dark. The results were damning. Over the next week, the pattern repeated. More girls' nights, more late work meetings that didn't exist, more carefully constructed lies. And every time, her location told the real story: boutique hotels, parking lots, quiet neighborhoods where she had no reason to be. But the real confirmation came from something even simpler than technology. It came from her own carelessness. One night, she came home late, and I noticed something off. She smelled different. Not her usual perfume. Something heavier, more masculine. It clung to her skin, to her hair. And when I leaned in to kiss her cheek, just as I always did, She turned her head ever so slightly, dodging it without even realizing what she had done. That was it. The final proof. The undeniable truth. Emma was cheating on me. And now, it was my turn to play the game. There's a moment when suspicion turns into certainty. A moment when all the little signs, the lies, the hesitation, the inconsistencies crash together like a wave, drowning any last shred of doubt. That moment came for me on a Friday night, with cold, irrefutable proof staring back at me from my own screen. Emma had left for another girls' night. Same routine, same rehearsed lies. But this time, I was ready. The tracking app showed her heading toward the same boutique hotel as before, and I wasn't about to sit at home, pretending I didn't know. I wanted to see it with my own eyes. I parked 2 blocks away and walked the rest of the distance, keeping to the shadows. My pulse was steady, my mind clear. I wasn't here to confront, to make a scene. No, I was here for something far more satisfying: evidence. The parking lot was dimly lit, half empty. And then I saw it, her car, parked near the side entrance, tucked away as if she thought hiding it would make the betrayal any less real. But it was what I saw next that sealed her fate. Another car pulled up beside hers. A man stepped out. Tall, broad-shouldered. Someone I didn't recognize. And then Emma appeared. She wasn't hesitant, wasn't looking over her shoulder in guilt or fear. No, she ran to him, threw her arms around his neck, kissed him like she hadn't kissed me in months. I should have felt rage. I should have wanted to storm over and tear them apart. But all I felt was something colder. Satisfaction. Because now I had everything I needed. I pulled out my phone, steadied my hands, and started recording. They didn't even notice. Too caught up in each other, in their little fantasy world where I was nothing more than a clueless, oblivious husband waiting at home. I filmed everything: the way she touched him, the way she smiled, the way she whispered something in his ear before leading him inside, hand in hand. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. The evidence was already perfect. I stood there for a moment, staring at the hotel door that had swallowed them, feeling an eerie calm settle over me. There was no more guessing, no more doubts. Emma had made her choice. And now, I was going to make mine. I walked back to my car, my mind already calculating, already planning. There would be no yelling, no messy confrontations. That would be too easy, too predictable. No, I was going to take my time. I was going to make sure that when I left her, she'd have nothing. No security, no money, no way to crawl back into the comfortable life she thought she had secured. She wanted secrets? Lies? Betrayal? She had no idea who she was playing against. I drove home in complete silence, the weight of what I had seen settling into something sharp and controlled inside me. No rage, no desperation, just precision. Emma thought she had been careful, that she had outmaneuvered me, but she had underestimated the one thing that made me different from the men she was used to. I don't act on impulse. I plan. She had given me all the information I needed without realizing it. The fake girls' nights, the sudden changes in habits, the hidden phone, and now, the physical proof. She was comfortable, reckless even, thinking she had me fooled. That was her biggest mistake. I sat in my office that night, staring at the screen, replaying the footage over and over. Every touch, every laugh, every stolen glance. And as I watched, I started to see the cracks in her plan. She wasn't just cheating, she was relying on me, depending on me. Her entire lifestyle was built on the foundation of my hard work, my stability, my money. That's where I'd strike. She loved luxury. The house, the vacations, the security of a man who handled everything so she could live without consequences. She thought she had 2 lives, one with me, stable and safe, and another with him, exciting and reckless. But what happens when both collapse at the same time? I started by gathering every financial document I could find. Our joint accounts, our investments, the honeymoon fund she was so eager to spend. I went through every purchase, every transaction, mapping out exactly where she had started shifting her expenses. I noticed something interesting: some of her charges didn't match up. Expensive dinners on nights I was supposedly out of town. Hotel bookings under a different card. A name variation I wouldn't have caught unless I was looking for it. She was paying for him. That was perfect. First, I transferred every liquid asset I had control over into an account under my name alone. I made sure our shared funds, the ones she assumed she had access to, were reduced to nothing. Next, I canceled our joint credit cards and requested replacements in my name only. She wouldn't notice until she tried to use them. Until it was too late. Then came the house. Technically, it was mine. She had always loved bragging about our home, but her name was never on the deed. She contributed nothing to the mortgage, never questioned how it was paid. She just assumed that what was mine was hers. That was another mistake. Assumptions kill. I drafted a legal notice to terminate her access to every shared account, every privilege she had enjoyed under my name. The email would hit her inbox at just the right moment, right after she returned from her little rendezvous. But that wasn't enough. Not yet. Emma prided herself on her image. Social circles, mutual friends, people who saw us as the perfect couple. She needed that validation almost as much as she needed the affair. And I knew exactly how to dismantle it. I compiled everything. The photos, the tracking logs, the text records I had pulled from the cloud. A complete, undeniable case of infidelity. Then, I crafted an email not to her, but to everyone she cared about. Her parents, her closest friends, her colleagues. A polite, professional message attached with all the necessary proof. No accusations, no dramatics. Just the cold, hard truth. I thought you should know who Emma really is. The final touch? The man she was seeing. I had found his name through a little digging social media, hotel bookings, the patterns she thought were invisible. He was married. That was my ace. I reached out to his wife. A single message, short and devastating. I think you should see this. I attached the footage, the texts, the receipts. I imagined the moment she would open it, the domino effect it would create. Emma wasn't just going to lose me. She was going to lose everything. By the time she stepped back into the house the next morning, her entire world would already be crumbling. Timing was everything. Emma had no idea that the walls were already closing in on her, that every step she took was another inch toward the edge of a cliff she didn't know existed. I had prepared everything to unfold in perfect sequence, ensuring that when the final blow landed, there would be no escape. No explanations. No second chances. Just consequences. She came home the next morning, exactly as I predicted, her expression casual, even content. She didn't suspect a thing. She didn't know that while she was tangled in someone else's embrace, her entire world had already been dismantled. I sat in the kitchen, a cup of coffee in my hand, waiting. When she walked in, she hesitated just slightly, as if sensing that something was off. Good. Let that uncertainty settle in. Morning, she said, forcing a smile. I nodded, taking a sip of my coffee, watching her. Just watching. I could see her mind racing, calculating, trying to gauge if I had noticed anything. But I didn't give her a reaction. Not yet. She walked to the fridge, pulled out a bottle of water, twisted the cap off. Casual. Unbothered. But when she reached for her phone, it vibrated before she could even unlock it. Her body stiffened as the notifications flooded in. Her eyes scanned the screen, the color draining from her face one message at a time. Her mother. Her best friend. A coworker. All responding to the evidence I had sent hours before. One after another, their words stacking on top of each other like the weight of an avalanche she never saw coming. Then, the real bombshell, his wife had answered. I watched her fingers tremble as she read the message. She blinked, lips parting as if she wanted to say something, but nothing came out. She knew. She knew this wasn't some random leak, some unfortunate accident. This was precision. This was deliberate. This was me. Finally, she turned to me, her voice weak, barely above a whisper. What did you do? I set my cup down slowly, tilting my head as if considering her question. I just told the truth, Emma. Isn't that what you always wanted? Honesty in a relationship. She shook her head, panic creeping into her expression. No, you don't understand. I don't. My voice cut through her excuse before she could form it. I wasn't interested in her lies, in her attempts to twist the situation into something forgivable. There was nothing left to forgive. Her phone vibrated again. Another message. This time, her lover's name flashing across the screen. I made sure he knew too, because why should he be left out of the fallout? He had played his part, and now, just like her, he would face the cost of his choices. I stood up, stretching slightly, my movement slow, controlled. You might want to check our bank accounts, I said, watching the confusion flicker across her face before she frantically opened the banking app. I didn't need to see the screen to know what she was looking at. Zero. Every shared account drained. Every credit card declined. Every safety net she thought she had? Gone. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. Did you really think I wouldn't notice? That I wouldn't put the pieces together? She was breathing heavily now, her mind scrambling for an escape, a way out. But there was none. I had made sure of it. Please, she finally whispered, her voice breaking. We can talk about this. We can fix. I laughed. Actually laughed. The sheer audacity of it all. Fix what, Emma? The fact that you were with another man? Or the fact that you thought I was too stupid to notice? Tears welled in her eyes, but I felt nothing. No sympathy. No regret. Just the satisfaction of knowing that I had taken everything she valued and left her with nothing but the weight of her own betrayal. I grabbed my keys from the counter, moving toward the door. She took a step forward, her breath hitching. Where are you going? I turned, meeting her desperate gaze with a smirk. Maldives. The word hit her like a slap. Her dream honeymoon, the trip she had been so excited for, the one she had fantasized about. But I cut her off with a single nod toward her phone. Check your email. Her hand shook as she fumbled with the screen, opening her inbox. And there it was, the final nail in the coffin. My flight confirmation. A honeymoon for one. She looked up at me, her lips trembling. You're leaving. Of course, I said smoothly, walking out without looking back. Enjoy your girls' night, Emma. And just like that, I was gone. I didn't turn back. I didn't need to. The silence behind me was enough. The weight of what I had done, of what she was just now beginning to grasp, settled into the air like a storm about to break. I could imagine her standing there, phone in hand, staring at the screen as her world collapsed in real time. The unread messages from friends and family, the missed calls from her lover's furious wife, the frozen bank accounts, the realization that she had lost everything in a single, calculated strike. I stepped into my car, closing the door just as the first sound broke through. A choked sob. Not the kind that begged for forgiveness, not yet. No, this was something deeper: shock. The slow, creeping horror of a person who had never truly believed they would get caught. Then came the scramble. I watched from my mirror as she rushed out onto the porch, barefoot, her phone still clutched in her trembling hands. She was looking at me, really looking at me for the first time, and I could see the questions forming in her mind. How? When? How much does he know? How long has he known? She ran toward the car, panic overtaking hesitation. I let her reach the window before I rolled it down, just enough for her to speak, but not enough for her to feel any warmth from me. Please, she gasped, her voice shaking. We can talk about this. I tilted my head slightly, watching her. Talk about what? My voice was calm, too calm, and that terrified her more than yelling ever could. She swallowed hard, glancing back at the house as if looking for an escape, a way to undo what had already been set in motion. It was a mistake, she stammered. I wasn't thinking. I let out a small, amused breath. How many times, Emma? She froze. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. She knew what I meant. How many times had she not been thinking? How many times had she walked into those hotels, kissed him in the parking lot, whispered into the phone while I was in the next room? She knew there was no right answer. I saw the shift in her expression then, the frantic attempt to regain control. It didn't mean anything, she tried, her voice softer now, as if she could pull me back in. You have to believe me, I never wanted to hurt you. I leaned back in my seat, studying her. You never wanted to hurt me? I repeated slowly, as if weighing the words. Or you never thought you'd get caught? She blinked rapidly, her breathing shallow. It wasn't like that. I laughed, quiet and sharp. It was exactly like that. Her hands pressed against the car window, desperation creeping in now. Good. Let her feel it. Let her taste the helplessness, the loss of control. Where are you going? She whispered, her eyes darting toward my luggage in the back seat. I smirked, watching the realization finally click in her mind. She had spent the last few months sneaking off, slipping away into the arms of another man, while I was planning my exit right in front of her. Maldives, I said simply, just as I had earlier. Her breath hitched. You're actually leaving? You were, I countered. She flinched. She opened her mouth again, but before she could speak, her phone buzzed loudly in her hands. I didn't have to ask who it was. I already knew. She glanced down at the screen, hesitation flickering in her eyes before she rejected the call. You should answer that, I said, feigning concern. I imagine he has a lot of explaining to do. She shook her head violently, a fresh wave of panic washing over her. Please, let's just wait. We can fix this. We can go to therapy. We can. I tilted my head, amused by the sudden desperation. Therapy? I echoed. Emma, you didn't even try to fix our marriage. You just went straight to another man. Tears welled up in her eyes, and for a moment, she looked genuinely lost. But I wasn't about to give her the comfort of believing she was the victim. I reached into my jacket, pulling out a neatly folded piece of paper and holding it up between two fingers. "You'll want to sign these," I said smoothly. I already had my lawyer draft them up. She stared at the divorce papers as if they were a physical blow. "No," she whispered, shaking her head. No, we can fix this." "You keep saying that," I mused. "Yet the only thing that was ever broken was my trust in you." A car pulled up at the end of the street, its headlights cutting through the dim morning light. She turned, watching as it slowed, recognizing the vehicle before it had even fully stopped. Him. Her lover. The irony wasn't lost on me. She had been so busy destroying our marriage, she hadn't noticed she had wrecked her affair too. I nodded toward the street. "Looks like you've got company. Maybe you two can fix things together." Her eyes widened, her whole body stiffening as her past and present collided in the cruelest way possible. She looked at me again, pure, raw panic in her expression. "Don't do this," she pleaded. I smiled, cold, final, unshaken. "You already did." And with that, I rolled up the window, put the car in drive, and left her standing there, stranded in the ruins of her own betrayal. Some people learn from their mistakes. Others are forced to live with them. Emma was in the second category. I didn't just leave her. I made sure she felt every single consequence of her choices until there was nothing left of the life she had so carefully built on lies. It started immediately after I left. While I was thousands of miles away, sipping a drink on a white sand beach in the Maldives, Emma was standing alone in the wreckage of her betrayal. I didn't block her number right away. No, I let the messages come in. The panic, the begging, the excuses. It was almost fascinating to watch her cycle through every possible reaction, first denial, then bargaining, then pure, unfiltered fear. She thought she could salvage her reputation. That was her biggest miscalculation. By the time she tried to do damage control, it was too late. Everyone already knew. Her parents, her friends, even her boss. I had made sure of that. Not by exposing her with a dramatic public display that would have been too simple. No, I let the truth spread naturally, whisper by whisper, message by message. People love a scandal, and Emma's downfall was the kind that people couldn't look away from. Her parents were the first to cut ties. They had always liked me, respected me. Her mother had once called me the best thing that ever happened to Emma. Now, that same mother left her voicemails filled with disappointment, her father refusing to speak to her at all. Their silence was worse than anger, and she knew it. Her social circle collapsed next. The same women she had laughed with over drinks, the ones who had once envied her perfect life, now wanted nothing to do with her. Some didn't want to be associated with the scandal. Others simply couldn't trust her anymore. After all, if she could betray her husband so easily, who else was she capable of betraying? But the worst, the real breaking point, came from him. The man she had risked everything for. His wife had been swift, efficient, merciless. Divorce papers were served almost immediately, and he lost everything. He hadn't just been unfaithful, he had been careless, reckless, spending money that wasn't entirely his. His wife made sure the courts knew it. She took half of everything and left him drowning in legal fees. And Emma? She thought he would choose her. She thought he would take her in, that they would be together now that I was out of the way. She was wrong. He didn't answer her calls, didn't return her messages. He ghosted her as if she never existed. Because to him, she never meant anything beyond convenience. She wasn't his future. She was his mistake. And now she was alone. That's when the financial hit started to sink in. She went to pay for groceries, only to find her card declined. She tried to book a hotel, denied. The life she had taken for granted, the comfort of knowing I had always handled things, was gone. The house? She couldn't afford it. She had no savings, because why would she? I had been her safety net, and I had ripped that net away without warning. She sent one last message. One final, desperate attempt to reach me. "I don't know where to go. Please, just talk to me." I never answered. She had made her choice, and I had made mine. Months passed. I moved forward. I thrived. She, on the other hand, became nothing more than a cautionary tale. I heard from mutual acquaintances that she had to move back in with a distant cousin, taking a low-paying job just to survive. The once proud, confident woman who used to parade around in expensive clothes and post about her perfect life was now a ghost of her former self. No friends, no support, just the memories of the life she had thrown away. I don't know if she ever truly understood what she had lost, but I do know one thing: she never saw it coming. She thought she was playing a game. She never realized that I had already won. I never looked back. Not once. Because some people don't deserve closure. They don't deserve explanations, second chances, or even a parting glance. They deserve exactly what they gave, nothing. Emma was a part of my past now, just a fated mistake I no longer carried with me. She had spent years believing she could lie, cheat, and manipulate without consequence, that she could have everything and still keep her safety net. But the world doesn't work that way. Choices have consequences. Actions have weight. And when you betray the wrong person, you don't just lose them, you lose everything. I moved on. The house was mine. The money was mine. The life I had built was still intact. Only now, without a parasite feeding off it. I rebuilt my routine, traveled more, met new people. And, most importantly, I never let what she did define me. I wasn't a victim. I was never a victim. I was the one who decided how this story ended. As for Emma, she faded into irrelevance, exactly where she belonged. No more picture-perfect posts about her life. No adoring messages from friends. No stable job. No secure home. No man willing to pick up the broken pieces she had left behind. Just silence. The same silence she had forced on me when she thought she could get away with it. And now, as I sit here, telling this story, I can't help but wonder, was I too kind? Should I have done more? Should I have let her crash even harder, made sure there was no chance of recovery? Or was the slow, inevitable unraveling of her life the perfect revenge? What do you think? If you were in my place, would you have stopped there?